Alright, welcome back to Making an Adventure, guys. This week we're going to set up our propane system. We've got a whole bunch of black pipe, got a whole bunch of fittings, couple of valves, and all this is going to go together and be our propane system. We have propane and barbecue grill size tanks. That reason we're just going with the barbecue grill size as opposed to a 30-pounder or even bigger permanently undermounted ones is, one, everybody has a barbecue, or at least a lot of people do, so those tanks are everywhere. Two, that thing right there, I can strap a barbecue grill tank to the back of that and go get some propane if I need to. And three, it's what we have in the garage. So coming out of the tank, we want it to hit a valve, and then that valve will let us be able to turn off the gas for the whole truck all in one turn. Out of that valve, we then need to hit three appliances. We need to hit the hot water heater, we need to hit the stove, and then in the back over here we're going to have an auxiliary for a fire pit if we want to have a fire pit on our ramp door deck or anything like that. So we need to make gas valve at each of those fittings as well. So out of the propane tank, comes through the truck, hit another valve, and then from that valve to an appliance. So we need to make those connections somehow kind of solid. For routing the whole propane, it's going to be copper. So we got this copper coil here. It says that it's for refrigeration and whatnot stuff. 3/8 OD 20-foot copper, flex copper. On that list of other stuff it can be, it has LP or liquid propane gas. It's actually not propane. Liquefied petroleum. Huh. So this flex line needs to connect up to this gas valve, and how we do that is through all of these reducers and elbows, and that'll get it into the black pipe, which then goes into the valve. So I need to set all that up real quick before we start poking holes in the truck. Pipe dope. The first thing you got to make sure when you're connecting up a gas line is that gas stays where you want it and it doesn't leak. To do that with black pipe, you want to use some sort of pipe compound. Most people call it pipe dope. On the bottle it says PTFE Teflon pipe sealant. And make sure somewhere on the can it says that it's rated for whatever you're using it with. I use this Blue Monster, and this works for everything. It has on the list compressed air, gasoline, diesel, propane, natural gas, kerosene, steam, soap, even fresh water, and it's food safe. Just make sure that your sealant won't degrade with whatever you're trying to seal. I know that coming out of the propane tank, it's going to end up through fittings and stuff into that copper line. From the copper line, you need one of these compression fittings. So this side is for a copper, certain diameter, same as what we're using, and then it goes in and compresses, and that makes our connection from the copper into something the black pipe can thread on. Out of this, I then need to connect it to a long pipe that can go through our floor. As you can see, I'm not making that joke. We just need a coupler on there. So on all the connections that are pipe thread, so tapered connections, metal to metal tapered connections, you want to use pipe thread sealant. So now the tightness that you want, tight, not too tight. Now that we got all of the fittings built up, it's time to poke some holes in the floor. And to do that, we're just going to use a hole saw. And this is going to make a much larger than what we need hole. You'll be able to see that. But we'll just fill those in with cans of spray foam. Hit the beam. Did you?
Yeah. I still think we can put the piece through though, because it's half on the beam, half not. Up there, that's what we're connecting to. We're running copper flex pipe. Alright, so it's best practice when you get a new roll of this kind of stuff. You always want to cut off the last little section of pipe, because it's generally jagged and not straight.
So after doing all of these fittings and that compression fitting that I was showing you, first I had a leak. So I talked to a plumber and was like, hey, what am I doing wrong? And the plumber told me you cannot do gas fittings and compression fittings. You can't do anything gas with compression. Compression's for water only. So he said switch to a flare fitting. So that means all of these compression fittings that I have, they all have to come off. So that means redoing the whole system. I can keep using the same copper, I hope, but all of these fittings have to be undone. So it is now -2, and we are still out here testing the system. We've got all the fittings swapped out with the flare fittings, and now we just want to pressurize it, but not too high. You don't want to go like 100 or so psi. You just want to do like 5 or 10 psi. Just super light, and see if it holds pressure. And it's not. Yeah, you gotta take your leak test solution and spray it all over everything and try it again. Oh, this is leaking right at the fitting right there. So that's one leak. We'll do this with all the other fittings and see if we can find another one. And we're testing our system with just air, not propane, not any flammable, anything, just regular old compressed air. Got one. Alright, perfect. So this is what it looks like when you actually have a leak. That is it. So let me tighten that up, and we're gonna leak test all the rest of them, and we will come back when we're putting propane in it. We need a main shutoff valve so that worst case scenario we can just flip one knob and turn off propane for the entire truck, and that's what this will do.
Kimi said it earlier, but when you're using threaded pipe, you need Teflon tape, and different colors of Teflon tape do different things. Yellow is for gas. Make sure you're using the right color tape for whatever you're doing, or it might leak. All right, we're going to connect our copper lines with flare fittings, and this is a flare here. In order to make the flare for the flare fitting, we're going to need the flare tool, and this one specifically we bought because it is refrigerant certified for the mini split that we're going to install. And this just has a series of different size holes. You just pinch it open, find the hole that it fits in. This one's a 3/8, so it's going to fit in the 3/8 hole. There's a specific amount that it needs to stick out. That varies per diameter. In our case, it's about a little under a 1/16. So you're going to line up the little pointy thing in the middle there. You're going to snug up this little side thing and snug it. After it's all nice and snuggy, we're going to come down with the expanding cone. And it should click when it's ready. Then we loosen it up and take the pipe out, and then we have a nice little flare. Alright, before I crimp the other end, we have to put the nuts on. Otherwise we would not be able to get the nuts on. And it'd be a sad day because we'd have to start over. So one of these goes with the little flare thing right up against the flare, and the other one's going to go opposite of it because this is going to be flared. And then we have a nice little flare. And that's how you do a flare fitting. It's super easy.
Okay, so I'm about to go outside and put on this regulator. It's really cold, so I'm going to explain this in here because I'm not saying anything when I go outside. It's like -5. That's too cold. This is a auto changeover regulator. When one tank gets empty, it'll flip over and change to the other tank. This fitting is oval, so I can't actually thread in the other lead onto it, so I'm gonna have to send this back. But I wanted to get this system tested so we could put out this video for you guys tomorrow. I'm gonna go hook this up to the flare fitting that we have underneath, take that pressure tester off, put this thing on, come back inside, and we'll test it. So I just put on a yellow hose on our gas fitting on this side to go from the wall to the stove. Now, hopefully don't gouge my floor. Plug that in. This is close by. I'm actually just gonna hold it. Here we go. Flame. Cool, no boom. That's good. So we posted on a couple of the forums of the conversions and schoolie forum, asking people if they had any questions about propane, and a couple of you guys answered, so we're going to answer those questions here now.
So Chris asked, I bought a tankless, ventless hot water heater. His idea was to install it inside. Some people said it would be fine, other people said no way.
To answer that question, both of those people are right. The system may not off-gas dangerous fumes into your space, but it is going to consume the oxygen in the air.
It might be ventless and approved for use in a house, but if you have a small enclosed space like an RV, it might not be the safest because you're going to have less volume of air in there. So the likelihood of you running out of oxygen is a lot higher in that situation.
A good idea is to put it behind a wall that's not in your main living space.
Another thing is propane is a very, very moist heat. So burning propane may produce excess moisture in your air and can result in mildew and mold forming, and that's not something you want in your living space.
Chad commented on people being afraid of propane and that you should check your system for leaks every once in a while and use common sense when setting it up. He also mentioned having a carbon monoxide detector. I would say also add a carbon dioxide, CO2, and also a propane leak detector. It's the same type of little box you just mount on the wall and it beeps at you if it senses propane. That way you don't go boom.
All right, and Tim asks, what are the pros and cons of different plumbing in LPG? Okay.
So he lists 3 different hoses. I think that this question alone warrants its own video. And so I'm just gonna breeze through this really quick and we're gonna have a question answer for just this question on Sunday. And then you guys you'll be seeing this video come out on Saturday. So come back tomorrow for the answer to this question. He asked about black pipe, polyethylene, rubber, and we're using copper. We're not using any of those. So the black pipe, really quick, it is quick and easy to work with. It's really strong, but it's heavy. Polyethylene, I do not recommend for using in a conversion application, and I'll dig in more to that tomorrow. Rubber is what they use on most RVs. It's very expensive. Copper is what we're using. It's easy to work with. It does require some special tools, but that is pretty much standard for setting up any propane system. Oh, now we're gonna answer a couple of questions that you guys didn't ask, but you should know.
Can I use a liquid instead of a vapor draw?
Maybe. Most likely no. You have to use vapor draw. Most appliances that you're gonna buy for personal use, not like a big factory, are gonna be vapor draw. The only ones I can think of that are liquid draw are forklifts. And unless you plan on running your forklift off of your conversion, stick to vapor.
Trying to use your forklift to cook your sausages.
There you go.
Should I use a permanently mounted tank or an exchangeable tank?
Permanently mounted tanks are going to be very heavy. You're not going to take it off and go and fill it up. The tanks that are mounted underneath have to be DOT inspected and certified tanks. That certification needs to be looked at every 5 to 10 years and has to be completely recertified after 12 years. A pro to having that tank on your truck or on your conversion is you can hold a lot of propane like that. But a con to that is if you run out, you got to take your whole vehicle to the station and get it filled up. That's why we didn't do that. The smaller tanks we can throw in the back of the motorcycle and go and fill up and then come back. And if those need to be inspected, we'll just swap them out. They're 20-pound tanks, barbecue grill size. We don't have to worry about taking them to go get re-inspected or anything. We just drop it off at the Blue Rhino or whatever and pick up a fresh one. It's a whole lot cheaper to go and get a small barbecue grill size tank, and they're everywhere, all over the place, and all different sizes. We're going with the 20-pounder just because that's the most common.
2 20-pounders.
Yeah, 2 20-pounders, and actually we might have more than that in a storage bin that we can just swap out. It's the most common tank you can find. You can get bigger. You can go up to 30. You can go up to 40. You're starting to push it at 40. After 40 it goes to 100. That's a bit much for one person to handle.
What fittings should I use in a propane system?
We messed up in the beginning of this video. You guys saw it. We use compression. Do not use compression fittings. Use flare fittings or NPT, National Pipe Thread. Those are the only 2 fittings that you can use for compressed gas that I know of. If you're using a pipe thread, make sure you use pipe dope and you're using using Teflon tape. And if you're using a flare fitting, do not use pipe dope or Teflon tape.
That about sums it all up for today's video. Thanks guys for watching. If you found this video helpful, please tell us what exactly you found helpful. Please like and subscribe and have a great day.